Hello, my name is James Abbott. I'm a researcher from Norwich. I've been given the opportunity today at the Minor Land of Fadak to speak to Sheikh Yasser al-Habib, to pose him a few questions that I'd like to know the answers to, and I'm sure you would too. Sheikh, it's a pleasure to meet you.
It is my pleasure, thank you very much. How was your trip?
It was good, thanks.
How do you feel right now meeting the hate preacher?
This is why I came, Sheikh.
Good. This is the best choice. It is good for a person to come directly to the source to ask questions, instead of hearing rumors here and there.
Okay, Sheikh, my first question is, why was it you decided to move to Fulmer? I mean, it's a bit surprising because there are no Muslims that live here. Why didn't you choose London, for example?
I personally do not like the city. I like quiet places that have surroundings which put you in the right spiritual state to practice your religion, and put you in the right spiritual state to think freely in peace. This place is outstanding from this point of view. Also, our followers and frequent visitors are not far from us. There are many of them who live in the neighboring areas, and their journey does not take more than 7 minutes by car. As for the people who live in London, the majority of them take the motorway, and their journey takes no longer than 30 minutes. If we were based in London, it would probably take them longer considering London's traffic. This building also has the planning permission to make it a place of worship, which suits our needs. We were previously in Wembley, and we suffered from noise pollution, we suffered from traffic and lack of space. And we do not have this problem here anymore, so this place suits us.
Okay, now I've heard that some of the residents in Fulmer aren't happy with the presence.
No, this is not true. We have felt very welcomed from the first day we came here. We did, however, hear that there is an individual who was uncomfortable with us being here, and that he has tried to convince some of the residents to side with him without any true reason. Maybe he's affected by the strong attacks of the media, which distorted our image. Otherwise, like I mentioned, from the first day we came here until now, we have been very welcomed by the residents. However, when the newspapers started writing negatively about us, it made some of our neighbors worried.
Okay. Have you managed to interact or integrate with the residents since the time you've been here?
Yes. We took part in numerous celebrations, and we offered our car park for free to the residents here, because we consider this mosque is for them as it is for us. We also shared our religious festivities with them and handed out cakes and sweets to them. We will not allow certain media organizations who are biased to ruin the relationship between us and the residents of our village. We are one community in the end.
Why then did you say you wanted your followers to come and settle here?
That target had been misunderstood.
What do you mean?
Give me a minute to explain. I encouraged some of our common visitors who live further away to try to buy or to rent homes which are closer to the mosque. We expect anyone who wants to move here to be a part of this diverse and friendly community. Our intention was not to create a separate community. It is my religious duty to ensure our neighbors are pleased with us, and I would not risk this. I shall take their sensitive position into consideration.
Okay, Sheikh. I understand that you refused to have an interview with journalists, even though they insisted many times. And in the BBC documentary, when you said no comment, doesn't this distort your reputation at all?
Well, I used to edit the news for a famous Kuwaiti newspaper at a young age. I learned many things in the time I worked in the media. And I understood how the media was able to transform a story, to push forward an idea which changed the opinion of the population. I understood how they could turn something from good to bad or from bad to good. Now, the BBC approached me and asked for an interview as part of its documentary named Freedom to Broadcast Hate. I made it clear to them that I refuse to speak with the media, as I'm aware my words would be taken out of context. And this is why I said no comment when they approached me the second time. I allowed them, however, to film me over 6 hours giving lectures on Fadak TV. In the lecture, I refuted the hate preacher allegation in detail and reaffirmed that we are a peace-seeking community, believing only in a non-violence approach and a pathway of civil coexistence. I also pointed them to my spokesman, Dr. Majid al-Ubaidi. The BBC interviewed him for 75 minutes. He explained everything to them clearly, with full transparency and honesty. And he refuted the claims that we are preaching hate.
But as I recall, none of this interview was shown apart from the question regarding the charity and company.
Yes, the BBC presenter and crew, who by the way are from the opposing sectors, did not like the answers Dr. Ubaidi gave in the interview. They did not see anything which can back their hate preacher claims against us. They purposely decided to concentrate on that one question asked to Dr. Ubaidi, which is completely off topic and is not part of his role as a spokesperson. He was asked if Khuddam al-Mahdi is a limited company or a charity. They asked this because they saw the same name, Khuddam al-Mahdi, registered both at Companies House and the Charity Commission. But they didn't understand that by law, you have to be registered with the Companies House to become registered as a charity. Dr. Ubaidi does not know the full details of the management and funding of Khuddam al-Mahdi, since he is not responsible or part of the management. So he told them to stop recording, but they carried on recording without him knowing. They promised to not show this part, but they did not keep to their promise.
All right. How would you describe yourself? Are you really a hate preacher? And if not, how would you describe the Sunnis' anger towards you? There's got to be some reason for this.
It has a reason, no doubt about it. It is to do with not accepting any criticism or a different viewpoint about their religion. The Muslims in general are not open to hearing criticism towards their beliefs. They have unfortunately not learned how to be flexible and accepting towards other viewpoints. Despite that, the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him and his pure and holy family, despite that, the Prophet of Islam being flexible and lenient to the utmost, I am a believer in criticizing religion, and therefore I do not only have a problem with the so-called Sunni sect, but also with the Shia. Just like how I criticize the religious figures of other sects, I also criticize the religious figures of my sect. For example, I harshly criticize Khomeini, even though he is a religious figure for many Shias.
One moment. This is because you oppose the Iranian regime, but this is a political stand, not a religious one, like the case of the Sunnis and their religious figures.
No, never. My criticism towards him is on his religious convictions and not his political side. I criticize the specific religious beliefs which I consider are against the teachings of Islam and Shi'ism. I also criticize his oppression towards the Iranian people. I consider him a dictator.
Even so, Khomeini is a contemporary figure. It's possible that criticising him is not sensitive like criticising religious figures like Omar, for example.
And who says that I do not criticize historical Shia religious figures? I harshly criticize Ibn Abbas, for example, a person who was alive at the same time as Umar ibn al-Khattab, and is considered a Shia figure. And even so, I still call him a hypocrite and criticize him as I do with Umar.
Okay.
I am, just a moment, I am a person who conducts religious and historical research. I like to share my opinions and research, and this is part of my freedom of opinion and expression. I do not force anyone to listen to me, and at the same time do not stop anyone from responding to my research.
Yes, but it isn't the same. You don't approve of these figures, but how about if it was a symbol or figure you respected?
Well, if I respect certain individuals and someone criticizes them, I would listen to what they have to say. I would take their words into consideration, and it can turn into a debate where we learn more about each other. Even if I'm hurt by his remarks, I would not let it lead to violence.
But this is exactly the type of criticism that leads to sectarian tensions in the Middle East. Take Syria, for example.
Well, pardon me, only a person who lacks experience would analyze things in such a way. Sectarian tensions between Muslims have existed since the beginning of Islam. Take Iraq as an example. Sectarian tensions started after the fall of Saddam Hussein, before the world even knew of Yasser al-Habib. So what led to sectarian violence there? You will not find a time where there wasn't any sectarian tensions. And this was before I was even born. So am I responsible for all of this now?
Okay.
No, just a moment. This issue in Syria is a conflict between opposition and regime. Both are corrupt, but due to the fact that the regime is an ally of Iran, and Iran is a Shia, the opposition had to use the card of sectarianism to give them sacred legitimacy to wage a war against the Shia, and that allowed the terrorist groups, including Al-Qaeda, to appear and grow up in Syria. Therefore, whether I spoke or not, existed or not, the transformation of that political conflict into a war would take sectarian place unavoidably, unfortunately.
Okay. But why do you insist on this way of criticising when you are aware that it offends Sunnis? What possible good can come out of this even if you claim it is not causing any direct sectarian conflict?
Like I told you before, my criticism is not just towards them, but towards the Shia too. I insist on criticizing our past, as I believe this will benefit humanity. For example, the whole world is now suffering from terrorism, which unfortunately started from Muslims communities. If we look into this matter carefully, we will discover that there are certain teachings which lead some Muslims to become terrorists. This is why we insist on criticizing these figures who we believe are responsible. Because criticizing these figures is enough to turn people away from these beliefs. And this will result in the peaceful Islam returning and would not see terrorism anymore. Imagine what a great goal this would be.
Yes, but why do you think it's necessary to mention such sensitive issues? Isn't it enough just to criticise Omar, for example, rather than celebrating his death?
Well, for us to be able to achieve this goal, we must make people pay attention by doing these things. And also you should know that these celebrations are not a recent innovation. We consider this part of our religious celebrations. And we have been doing these celebrations over many centuries. And it is all recorded in reliable history sources. If you ask why we insist on these celebrations, I will say to you that on top of it being part of our inherited religious practice, we are also aware and realize that people would not pay attention if we just write these things on paper. The books which criticize this tyrant, Umar ibn al-Khattab, are there from centuries ago. But who reads them today?
A tyrant?
Yes, a tyrant. Yes, he's a tyrant. The person who in history you read if you read the history about him, you will see that he ordered the total destruction of an entire village named Arab Sus. He ordered the killing of its people, and he ordered the destruction of their homes, and he ordered for all the trees to be burnt just because the people of the village opposed some of his orders. The person who ordered to killing of all the children in Iraq, except for Arab Muslims, if their height exceeded roughly 130 centimeters. How can we not consider such a person a tyrant? And can we be blamed for celebrating the death of such a tyrant and war criminal like Umar ibn al-Khattab? I think the person who should be blamed is the one who respects this individual and orders other people to respect him forcefully. It is part of our religious duty to expose such personalities.
But what if they deny these allegations and don't consider these historical sources as correct?
If they deny these narrations, even though they are in well-known and authentic sources, then they must allow others to respond to them and prove their point of view. And this means opening the door to religious criticism for this person. And this is exactly what we want. And they can defend him as they wish, and we can criticize him as we wish. And each of us can prove this argument in peace.
Well, even if that was true, these sort of actions could fuel anger, which could probably lead to violence. For instance, if a Sunni came and decided to kill you, for example, would you not hold yourself responsible for that?
Well, this is like saying that Theo van Gogh, the producer from Holland, is responsible for his own death. He made a film criticizing Islam and its actions, and was brutally murdered by a young Muslim, extremist young Muslim. Can we accept this logic?
No, of course
that
not.
he is the person who is responsible for that?
No, but if we do this...
So do you think that Holland should have banned Theo van Gogh from freely expressing his point of view and criticizing Islam, since his words were responsible for issues in the Islamic world, and it even reached a stage where churches and mosques were being burnt? Do you accept that?
This is exactly what I want your opinion on.
Well, my opinion is that freedom of expression is a sacred for every human. And if a group of people do not accept criticism and let it lead to violence, then it is the government's responsibility to teach these groups how to accept criticism, just like what Holland is doing right now. We all have to learn how to accept and welcome criticism to our beliefs and opinions. This is how we will be able to live in peace. The biggest mistake will be to submit to a pressure and suppress the freedom of speech and tell people you cannot criticize other people's faith because its followers are not flexible and they might harm you or use violence against you. This is wrong and a sign of weakness. Is this the sort of community community what we want?
Well, what we want, and I'm sure everyone wants, is a community free from hate.
And at the same time, a community which enjoys a freedom of opinion and expression. Isn't that right?
Yes, but is such a balance even achievable?
That is easily achievable by setting a specific definition of a freedom of expression and hate speech.
What exactly is that in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, freedom of expression has its limits. You cannot encourage people to engage in violence or racism. This is not freedom of expression. And as for hate speech, it is a relative issue. For example, if we show hate towards Nazism, figures like Hitler, this will be a good thing for the community, as it will discourage them from falling in that belief. As for unacceptable hate speech, that is when it is used against people who just have a different opinion to you, for example.
But this is what your critics say against you, that you're spreading hate amongst the Sunnis.
This is absolutely wrong. I do not hate them. In fact, I consider them my brothers, and I wish the best for them. And I have said this many times in my religious lectures and writings. How can I hate them when I allow them to come to our mosque and pray? Do you know that my children's special tutor is a lady who belongs to their sect, if I hated them, would I allow one of them to come to my house and teach my children?
Sorry, I'm not convinced. You say you're not a hate preacher, but you purposely target Sunni sacred religious symbols.
Sacred is also a relative term. It may be sacred to some people and not sacred to others. And if you stop everyone from criticizing that symbol, then you have made it a sacred symbol for everyone. Even if they do not consider it sacred, they would be afraid to say anything because they will be labeled as hate preachers. This is how we will this is how we will head back to the Middle Ages. This is best described as intellectual terrorism. Imagine if a law came out which banned people from opposing Hitler with the excuse that he is now a sacred symbol to a certain sect in the UK or in Europe, or that this will lead to violence since Hitler still has supporters. How can we respect ourselves if we pass such laws?
The Sunnis don't consider these religious figures.
Just a moment, please. We are called the rejectors. We are called the rejectors. We consider ourselves the Islamic historic opposition. Does not the opposition have the right to speak out? We want our right to be the opposition to be safeguarded. And let us be clear, although I reject their sacred symbols, I do not reject the followers of those symbols. I have the right to assess personalities in history, even if others do not agree with my evaluations.
All right, but the Sunnis don't consider these religious figures as evil war criminals. They have a different interpretation to yours.
Your sacred symbols could be a symbol of evil and oppression for me, and vice versa. And just how you have the right to call on people to follow your sacred symbols, I also have the right to criticize them and call on people to reject them. Everyone can defend their sacred symbols as they wish, but they cannot incite violence against people who reject these symbols. This is taking away freedom of expression. We are the historical opposition in Islam. Isn't it our right as the opposition to express our views and opinions? It is known worldwide that the opposition always has the right to give its opinion. Otherwise, this becomes a dictatorship. We do not want anything more than this. We just want our right to express our view and our right to oppose.
Even so, but what matters to us is we don't want to see in Britain sectarian tensions which could lead to violence in our streets.
And this is what matters to us also. But there is no need for such an exaggeration as if a war is about to break out here in UK and that we are responsible for that. I have been here for over 10 years nearly, and I have been practicing and doing the same events for all the years I have been here. And nothing dangerous or serious has happened because of it. In fact, the first few years we had angry responses on the internet, and in the recent years we have not heard even a reply. This has now become a reality which Muslims from all sects are aware of.
Surely a much more efficient way to calm sectarian tensions is to have debates and discussions with others. My question is, why don't we see you open to others in the sense of having debates and discussions so you can understand each other's point of view?
Who said that we are not opened to others and that we do not have debates or discussions? If you follow our programs, you will realize we have many debates and discussions. I had many debates with scholars from the other sect, debates, for example, with scholars from Morocco, from Egypt, from Qatar, from so-called Saudi Arabia, and from other countries. The nicest thing about these debates that we had was that we agreed. No matter how much we disagree on these personalities, we will still respect each other. This is the sort of atmosphere we want.
All right, I have a few questions concerning the more controversial statements that you made. For example, the sensitive issue the Independent reported on.
They cut the part in which I was reading an account plainly and avoided to show the part in which I commented on it. I said clearly that I do not endorse that narration in its bare text. We sent an official reply to the Independent with a CD containing the whole lecture together with our commentaries, but again, the media was not dealing with us fairly.
Well, what about when you said that Omar and Abu Bakr had a sexual relationship?
I said that in response to a Saudi sheikh, al-Urayfi, who said, maybe the Prophet, peace be upon him and his pure family, used to sell alcohol. And I was told not to be offended by that statement because he said maybe. So I said to him, and that you should not be offended either if I use the same standard. So I used the same benchmark and used the same word, maybe, and said, maybe those two had a sexual relationship with each other. Again, the media only showed the last part and failed to show the whole context.
There was one part in the BBC documentary where a beep was placed. What did you say at that point?
We were very shocked when we saw this part had been covered with a beep. I said during my lecture that the historians reported that Umar ibn al-Khattab was a very ugly person, that when a pregnant woman used to walk past him and see him, she would have a miscarriage from the amount of shock she suffered. This is what non-Shia historians reported, by the way. This fact is available in historical sources. So, if we report these as part of our lessons or lectures when we examine these criminal figures, have we at all encouraged hatred?
Wait, is this all you said? Surely there was some sort of reason why they covered it up.
That was all I said. But according to the producers of this documentary, it does deserve to be covered. Keeping in mind what I said to you before, that the people who made this documentary belong to the sect who respects Umar ibn al-Khattab. So this is why they covered that statement with a beep. What I find strange is that at the same time they did not cover the words of other preachers with a beep when they spoke out against Shias. For example, they showed one Egyptian hate preacher who clearly said, "Oh God, freeze the blood in the necks of Shias and in their stomachs and in their backs, and that may they be inflicted with cancer." and be wiped out of the earth. How shameful of the BBC is to not cover such words which are clearly hate speech. And at the same time, we read a historical narration that is not even from our books, and they consider it hate speech and cover it with a beep.
I have one last question. What is the positive role that Sheikh Yasser al-Habib can play a part in? What is his opinion on the relationship that must exist between British Muslims and the other communities? And what are the responsibilities of the Shia Muslims in Britain for their country?
If you want to understand my opinion regarding this matter, all you have to do is read our newspaper, Shia newspaper, or visit our website, alqatra.net, and you will read there our point of view and some of the advice we gave. Generally, I advise, and I still advise, Muslims in this country to be positive and to not live in a separate communities, but to mix with the rest of the communities in Britain. And at the same time, to preserve their religious identity.
Is it possible, in your opinion, for British Muslims to preserve the religious identity and be British at the same time?
Definitely. They can be British Muslims, which means they should uphold great British values as well as great Muslim values. In reality, I see many values which we share with the British already. Treating your neighbor well, for example, whether it is from a religious or personal side. And this is something central we have in Islam. We have learned from our noble prophet, peace be upon him and his pure family, that we have to be well to our neighbors, even if they are not well to us. And it doesn't matter from which sect they from. And we learned as well that we have to mix with them and be kind towards them. Muslims should not only make their social interactions linked to religious activities. Muslims have to befriend others from other faith schools and not consider the UK as a temporary homeland, but to defend it if need be and take it as home.
Okay, thanks very much, Sheikh. It's been a pleasure to meet you and to speak with you today.
It has been a pleasure having you here. Thank you very much.